Welcome in, everyone, to today's deep dive. Before we even really start unpacking the fascinating material we have lined up for you, I just want to take a second to extend a very warm welcome to you, wherever you happen to be listening from today. And I want to offer a sincere, divine blessing for your day and really for the entire week ahead of you. May your steps be guided and, well, may you find clarity and wisdom and profound peace in whatever challenges you're facing right now.
Thank you for that. That's just a beautiful way to ground us before we start. It really sets the perfect tone for the kind of deep reflection this specific material demands.
I think so too, because, well, what we're looking at today, it touches the absolute core of human nature. Like, let me ask you, the listener, a question. Have you ever wanted something so badly, maybe just to fit in with a crowd, or maybe just to feel a little more safe and secure,
Yeah.
that you completely ignored all the giant red warning signs?
Oh man, we've all been there.
Right. Only to realize, years down the line that you effectively signed your own death warrant. I mean, whether that's financially, professionally, or even emotionally, you just realize that the hidden costs were absolutely astronomical.
Yeah, it's a trap literally every single generation falls into. And today we're looking at one of the most vivid historical blueprints of this exact psychological phenomenon.
Exactly. So for our deep dive today, we are diving into ancient history, specifically chapter 8 of the book of 1 Samuel, and we're heavily referencing insights from some major study Bible commentaries like the Holman and the NAA.
Right, because this chapter isn't just a dry historical record. It's a profound, truly tectonic societal shift.
It really is.
We are looking at the precise historical moment when an entire nation willingly traded its own freedom for, well, the illusion of security.
And to understand how a society even reaches a breaking point like that, we have to look at the catalyst.
Yeah.
Because people don't usually just wake up and throw away their entire system of government when things are going great.
Right. No, definitely not. There is almost always a crisis of leadership that triggers the initial panic. Every massive systemic collapse starts with a fracture somewhere.
Right.
And here the fracture centers around Samuel. So Samuel is this towering historical figure. He's a prophet, a judge. He's basically the moral and civic anchor of ancient Israel. But, well, he's grown old.
Time comes for everyone.
Exactly. And like so many charismatic founders or leaders, his succession plan leaves a massive, massive amount to be desired. He just unilaterally appoints his two sons, Joel and Abijah, as judges over Israel.
And the geography detail here in the commentary is just totally fascinating to me. So Samuel is operating out of Ramah, which is, relatively central. It's a hub of activity.
Yeah.
But he doesn't keep his sons there with him.
No, he doesn't. He stations them way down in Beersheba.
Right. And that detail tells us so much about the internal politics at play, I think, because Beersheba is in the extreme south.
Yeah, it's essentially the edge of the inhabitable territory. It's this dusty desert border town.
It feels exactly like a modern corporate maneuver to me.
Yeah.
Like you have this powerful CEO who refuses to relinquish control at headquarters.
Right, absolutely.
He wants to keep his corner office in Ramah, but he knows his kids are completely unqualified, and he still needs to give them a fancy title to secure their status.
Yeah.
So what does he do? He opens a remote branch office in the middle of nowhere just to get them out of his hair while keeping the power in the family name.
That is honestly a brilliant way to conceptualize it. He isolates his own weakness, or, well, at least he tries to, but the text reveals that inherited power rarely comes with inherited character.
So true.
The sons did not walk in Samuel's ways. They're placed in this remote administrative outpost, and they immediately turn to extortion. I mean, they take bribes, they completely pervert justice.
Which fundamentally breaks the social contract of that era. I mean, think about it. If you're a farmer in ancient Israel and someone steals your land, your only recourse is the local judge.
Right. There's no Supreme Court to appeal to.
Exactly. So if the judge could just be bought off by the guy who stole your land, society becomes completely unlivable. It's dangerous. So, naturally, the elders of Israel form a delegation. They travel all the way up to Ramah, they confront Samuel, and they essentially say, look, man, you are old, your sons are entirely corrupt, this whole system is broken.
It is a massive, pivotal confrontation.
But here is where I want to kind of push back a little on behalf of those elders, just looking at the facts. They are being extorted daily. The justice system has turned into a mafia racket. Given how terrible these two sons are, aren't the people totally justified in marching up there and demanding a complete overhaul of the government? I mean, they're basically acting in self-defense.
You are absolutely right to point that out, and that distinction is crucial here. Their grievance was 100% legitimate.
Okay.
The anger, the frustration, that deep fear of raising your family under corrupt judges, all of that is entirely valid. The issue wasn't the diagnosis of the disease, you know.
It was the cure they asked for.
Precisely. The issue was their prescribed cure. Bribes completely destroy the fundamental purpose of justice, sure. But that's exactly what they didn't address.
Walk me through that, because to me, if the judges are bad, you just throw out the judges and get new ones.
But that is exactly what they did not do. They didn't go to Samuel and say, hey, your sons are corrupt, please institute a new oversight committee. Or let's return to the decentralized system of local elders.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they didn't ask for honest judges. They looked at a localized corruption crisis and said, give us a king to judge us.
Okay. So they basically weaponized a perfectly legitimate crisis to push through an entirely different political agenda.
Exactly. They used a failure in the current system as an excuse to fundamentally alter the entire architecture of their society. They wanted to transition from this decentralized, loosely affiliated tribal confederacy into a highly centralized hereditary monarchy.
Which brings us to Samuel's reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Because he is deeply offended by this. He takes it incredibly
Oh,
personally.
he's crushed.
Right. In his mind, he has poured his entire life into this nation, and now they're aggressively forcing him into early retirement.
Mm.
But God steps in here and completely reframes the situation for him, kind of lifting Samuel out of his own wounded ego.
It's a fascinating psychological intervention, really. God essentially tells Samuel, look, you need to step back. They haven't rejected you. They have rejected me from being king over them.
Wow.
And to really grasp the weight of that statement, you have to understand Israel's unique setup up to this point. Their entire national identity was founded on this radical, I'd even say terrifying level of freedom.
Because they didn't have a traditional state apparatus.
Right. No standing army, no vast state bureaucracy, no king. When a military crisis hit, the commentary points out that they had to rely entirely on God to dynamically raise up a leader, a judge, to deliver them in that specific moment.
That requires just an immense amount of tolerance for ambiguity. I mean, imagine you're sitting there. An enemy army is literally massing on your border, and you just have to wait. You had to trust that a leader will emerge out of nowhere. It's terrifying.
It requires profound moral vigilance and, well, intense faith. And frankly, the people were exhausted by it.
Freedom is a heavy burden.
It really is. They were so tired of the unpredictability. They wanted something tangible. A hereditary monarchy offers predictability, right? You always know exactly who is in charge. You always have a standing army ready to go.
Even if the person in charge happens to be a total tyrant.
Exactly. Predictable oppression started to look way more appealing to them than unpredictable freedom.
And the exact phrasing the elders use here reveals everything about their real motivation. They don't just say, hey, we need a military commander. They demand a king like all the nations.
Yes.
That specific phrase, like all the nations, it just leaps right off the page.
Because it contradicts the entire reason for Israel's existence. The foundational premise of their nation was that they were supposed to be distinct. They were set apart, operating on a completely different metric of power.
But they look across their borders.
Right? They look at the Philistines and the Ammonites. They see these grand, imposing monarchs. They see iron chariots, palace guards, all the royal regalia. And they feel this deep, crushing geopolitical insecurity.
It's the ultimate keeping up with the Joneses, but, with national defense.
Absolutely.
And you see this dynamic all the time today. I mean, think about it in business. You have this highly successful, mission-driven startup, right? It's innovative, it's flexible, it's doing great.
Well, I know where you're going with this.
Right. But then the founders look around at the giant corporate conglomerates, they get insecure about their status, and they decide to take on massive private equity funding.
Just to look the part.
Exactly. Suddenly they get the shiny new headquarters, they get the prestige, they look like all the other big companies.
Yeah.
But the hidden cost is they give up their equity. They answer to a board that doesn't care at all about their original mission. And the founders suddenly realize they are just employees in a rigid machine they built themselves.
That is a spectacular analogy. It really is. Because in both cases, you are confusing the visible outward symbols of power with actual strength.
Yes.
Israel felt vulnerable. They thought an earthly king would project strength and solve their anxiety. They completely ignored the fact that their historical victories were never won through chariots or, bureaucracy, but entirely through their reliance on the divine.
So they demand the shiny corporate overhaul. And God's response here is so interesting. He doesn't strike them down with lightning. He doesn't even flat out refuse.
No,
He
he
basically
accepts.
says, fine, you can have this. But Samuel, you must give them informed consent. He insists that Samuel clearly lay out what the text calls the rights of the king.
Which is essentially the standard operating procedures of an ancient monarchy. God is saying, I will allow you to make this choice, but I am going to make absolutely sure you understand the systemic, economic, and personal destruction this choice is going to unleash.
It's God forcing them to actually scroll down and read the terms and conditions before they click accept.
That's exactly what it is.
And we really need to read those terms right now, because what a centralized monarchy demands mechanically, it's just staggering. Samuel doesn't just vaguely say, hey guys, the king will be mean.
No, he's very specific.
He lays out a step-by-step breakdown of how a state apparatus literally consumes a society. And it starts right in the home, doesn't it? With conscription.
Right. He tells them the king will take their sons, he'll draft them to run before his chariots and appoint them as commanders of thousands and commanders of 50.
Which sounds kind of prestigious at first glance.
It does, but chariots were the advanced military technology of the surrounding nations. Having infantry run ahead of them was a tactical necessity, sure, but it was also a massive, massive display of royal prestige.
But let's pause and look at the actual economic mechanism of that for a second. In agrarian society, your sons are your workforce.
They're everything.
If the state takes your young men and permanently stations them in a standing army, the immediate casualty is the family farm. I mean, who is harvesting the barley now? You've just completely gutted the local agricultural workforce.
Exactly. You disrupt the entire food supply chain at the grassroots level. But of course, the state's appetite doesn't stop with just soldiers. Samuel warns that the king will also take those sons for forced labor.
Wait, really? So they aren't even just fighting?
No, he says they'll be taken to plow his ground, reap his harvests, and manufacture his weapons of war.
Wow. Because to sustain a standing army, you have to build an entirely new, massive professional class just to supply it. Blacksmiths need food. Soldiers need armor.
Exactly.
So the king forces the citizens to abandon their own family land to go work the state's land just to feed the military machine that the people originally asked for in the first place.
It's a self-perpetuating engine of state expansion, and it directly impacts the daughters too, by the way. The warning clearly states the king will take your daughters to be perfumers, cooks, and bakers.
Okay, I have to ask, why perfumers? I mean, I completely understand needing cooks and bakers for a giant army, but perfumers sounds like a luxury, not an urgent national security requirement.
Well, because a king does not just need a military, he needs a court. He needs a massive royal household to maintain his lavish lifestyle and, crucially, to project soft power.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, royal banquets, elaborate sensory displays. These are how ancient kings impressed foreign dignitaries and signaled absolute authority to their own subjects. So the daughters are pulled away from their families to serve the vast domestic machinery of the palace.
So you are basically bleeding human capital on all fronts, but then it crosses the line into rampant cronyism and outright wealth confiscation. Samuel says the king will take the absolute best of your fields, your vineyards, and your olive groves, and he will just give them to his servants.
This is a devastating structural shift for them, and historical records and archaeological seals from the ancient Near East confirm this practice entirely.
It was standard procedure.
Totally. Kings would routinely seize the most productive agricultural estates from the common people to distribute to their political loyalists and their military commanders.
It is an aggressive upward redistribution of wealth. And the irony is just, it's almost painful. The people originally went to Samuel because his sons were stealing from them.
Right, taking bribes.
Their solution was to ask for a king to enforce justice. But Samuel telling them, guys, the king is going to institutionalize the very theft you are trying to escape. He will legally confiscate your ancestral lands just to pay off his political buddies.
It creates a ruling elite that is entirely dependent on the king's favor, and it's funded entirely by the stolen prosperity of the common citizen. And if losing your best land wasn't enough, there is the taxation.
Right, of course. The taxes.
Samuel says the king will demand a tenth a tithe of their seed, their flocks, and their vineyards.
10%. Now, to a modern listener, a 10% income tax sounds like an absolute dream.
Right, sign me up.
Seriously. But we really have to contextualize what 10% meant to a subsistence farmer 3,000 years ago.
Yeah. It meant the margin of survival. In that economy, a 10% extraction could literally mean the difference between making it through a drought or starving to death.
Wow.
Furthermore, that 10% competed directly with the tithe they were already commanded to give to God.
Oh, that's a huge point.
Right, the divine tithe was the social safety net meant to support the priesthood, the widows, the orphans, and the foreigners.
So the human king is demanding to be treated with the exact same resource priority as the divine. He's siphoning off the community's most vulnerable safety net to fund his chariots and, well, his perfumers.
You see the cascading effect here. You lose your labor force, you lose your most productive land, you lose your surplus income, and Samuel brings this entire terrifying list to one chilling, inevitable conclusion.
What does he say?
He summarizes the whole warning with just one sentence. He says, "And you yourselves will become his slaves."
Man, it is so bleak. He is outlining how the sheer weight of maintaining this centralized institution will inevitably, mathematically, crush them. They will go from being free landowners, relying on their own local communities, to feeling like subjects in bondage.
Yes, essentially tenant farmers for the state.
In their own country.
He paints a picture of total systemic subjugation.
Which honestly makes the very next moment in the narrative almost unbelievable. Because after Samuel lays out this horrific, detailed reality like you will be drafted, you will be taxed into poverty, your property will be seized by bureaucrats, and you will essentially be slaves, the people look at him and their response is, no, we want a king over us.
They hear the absolute worst case scenario and they actively, stubbornly choose it.
I have to ask, from a psychological perspective, well, why? Why would any society of rational human beings willingly sign up for their own subjugation? How do you possibly justify trading away your property and your own children?
To understand that, you have to listen very closely to their final justification. They tell Samuel, "Then we will be like all the other nations with a king to lead us and to go out before us and fight our battles." That last phrase is the absolute key. To go out before us and fight our battles. They wanted to outsource their responsibility.
They just wanted someone else to carry the weight.
Exactly. As we discussed earlier, freedom is incredibly heavy. When a crisis hit under the old system, they were expected to step up, to trust, to fight. They were terrified at the Philistine armies. The mass anxiety was so incredibly high that they were willing to trade their personal liberty, their economic future, and even their children, entirely for the illusion of security.
Because it felt safer.
They believed that a visible human leader taking responsibility for their safety was worth literally any price.
Is the ultimate abdication of agency. They are so paralyzed by immediate fear that they say, here, take our wealth, take our sons, take our land. Just make the fear go away.
Just make us look formidable like our neighbors.
Right. They completely miscalculated the true cost of centralized power because their vision was just entirely narrowed by panic.
And this brings us to God's final, very sobering concession in the text. God tells Samuel, obey their voice and make them a king. He doesn't protect them from their own disastrous choice.
Wow. You know, sometimes the most severe consequence you can ever face is simply being given exactly what you persistently ask for.
It is a profound realization. The commentary highlights this as a truly dark moment. God allows them to institutionalize their own oppression. He steps back and says, you demand this system. Fine, you will now live under the reality of the system you demanded.
It really forces you to take a breath. It is a heavy, monumental turning point in history. And as we bring this deep dive to a close today, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to really mull over as you go about your week.
It's definitely something that sticks with you.
It really does. Think about this. When we face periods of intense instability in our own lives, whether that's chaos in our careers, anxiety in our communities, or even deep uncertainty in our personal relationships, how often do we rush to surrender our own agency?
That's the real question.
How often do we look for a quick fix, or blindly attach ourselves to a charismatic leader, or adopt a rigid, demanding system just to relieve our immediate anxiety?
It's the fundamental question of human organization and really of personal integrity. Are we willing to do the difficult daily work of maintaining our freedom, our critical thinking, and our moral principles? Or will we just eagerly hand over our power just to feel a fleeting, temporary sense of safety?
Exactly. The story of 1 Samuel 8 might be thousands of years old, but it is a profoundly urgent modern warning. It challenges us to stop, to look past the shiny exterior, and to carefully read the terms and conditions of the solutions we so desperately demand. Because sometimes the cure we are begging for will cost us infinitely more than the disease.
Beautifully said.
Thank you. And thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It has been an absolute privilege exploring these incredible insights with you today. God blesses all the listeners. Take care, and we will catch you on the next one.